Sup, everyone? We are finally back at it recording for another episode of the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B right here. Joey D, man, the weather is getting warmer. Basketball season is over, or college basketball season is over. Baseball's just starting, and we are getting closer and closer to the NFL draft and the all-season and training camp. But how are you doing today, my friend?
Tim, I'm doing great. It has been a great week. It is
Oh,
about
yeah.
to get very great. I'm very excited for the rest of this week. It's been a really interesting last couple weeks with a lot of significant NFL news. And, of course, much to your chagrin, the Eagles are back in the spotlight again a couple times. So, we love to see it. Can't stay out of the spotlight. But, yeah, it's been good, man. Life is good. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be talking to the gentle listeners once again.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it. The Eagles did get into some news, but I'm just going to read a couple of recent NFL signings that we might have missed in the last couple of weeks or anything like that. Colt McCoy signed with the Cardinals, a nice backup quarterback, a nice veteran backup quarterback. The Steelers upgraded their running game a little bit with Kalen Ballage, always a good option right there. I'm just scrolling until I see a name. Tajay Sharp, wide receiver to the Chiefs, good for him. Jordan Berry, punter to the Steelers, that's always nice. Danny Shelton going to the Giants. Xavier Woods, safety, going to the Vikings. Mohamed Sanu staying in San Francisco. Ronnie Hudson finally locked up at that deal with Arizona. There was another big name. Shaq Lawson was traded and signed a restructured deal with the Texans. The Ravens re-signed LJ Ford. The Eagles, your Eagles, Joe, they are in the news big time. Not only did they sign Anthony Harris, but the Eagles have found their starting quarterback for this year, which will take them to the Super Bowl and lose to his former team, the Baltimore Ravens. The Eagles have signed Joe Flacco to be quarterback. So, Joe, your thoughts on, I guess, also signing Anthony Harris, but also finding your starting quarterback for this season?
Yeah, I guess we'll start with Joe Flacco just to clarify that, Tim. He is coming in. He says he's going to compete. He says he's competing for a starting job. So we'll see. But I think this is Jalen Hurts' team. This is Jalen Hurts' team. This is his year and, his opportunity to, show the Eagles and the NFL if he's capable of being a franchise quarterback or not. Joe Flacco has had his time of being elite in Baltimore. And if he has to play a game or two, I'm sure his elite form will show up once again since he's a New Jersey native and, was a Philadelphia Eagles fan from the day of his birth. So, I'm glad to have him here. He's a quality backup quarterback, but at the same time, it was for a team that has essentially admitted that they're rebuilding this year. It's a lot of money to, pay a backup quarterback when, like I said, we're rebuilding. Like, what do we need a backup QB that's decent for, that can win a game or two, really that much? I mean, if Jalen Hurts misses a couple games and, like we could have got a guy like bring back Nate Sudfeld, Mr. Elite himself. There's a lot of cheap options out there and it doesn't really matter. I mean, Geno Smith with the Seahawks, like, I don't care. Like, it's a backup quarterback and we're not going to be competitive this year. So there's no point in investing significant resources into it. I think we paid Joe Flacco 4 times what he made with the Jets last year or something like that. It's ridiculous considering the fact that he went 0-4 as the starter last year with the Jets. But
he almost beat the Patriots on Monday Night Football.
He did. He had some good plays here and there. And I think it's important to have, a different voice that for Jalen Hurts to kind of lean on and listen to. Compared to, having Carson Wentz his rookie year when Carson Wentz was very clearly checked out for a lot of that season. So glad to have him. Like I said, decent backup quarterback, definitely overpaid. I'm more excited about the Anthony Harris signing from the Vikings. 2 years ago, he led the league in interceptions. Didn't have as good a year last year, but, the surrounding pieces really weren't there. So it was him and Harrison Smith kind of doing a lot, and the Eagles were able to get him on a very cheap deal, 1 year, $5 million. So if he plays well, he has the opportunity to come back again next year. We re-sign him when our cap space gets a little bit more manageable, and we're just able to spend a little bit more money and hopefully keep someone like that who can be a good safety. The only problem is he's about to turn 30, so not the young safety we were hoping for, but I think it's important to have someone there, considering Rodney McLeod's going to start the season on the PUP list. Jalen Mills is gone. I don't want Marcus Epps and Kavon Wallace to be our starting safeties. So, glad we're having some steady force back there. So we'll see. But I like the two moves overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Both were great veteran moves. And once Lamar, a year with Joe Flacco, the year after his full year as a starter, was the unanimous NFL MVP. So maybe in 2022, that could be Jalen Hurts. But Joe, we did the same thing with Trent and Carson Wentz. So on behalf of Ravens Nation, I have a very elite jersey for you to wear. He's actually going to number 7, I believe. So good luck to lucky number 7 and Joe Flacco. And we are passing it over to you. And there you go, Joe.
It's over here somewhere.
Before we get into some bigger news with some draft that has happened in the last couple of weeks, a couple of big wide receiver moves have happened. First of all, T.Y. Hilton is returning back to the Colts, had a strong offer from the Ravens. Money was a little bit more on the Ravens side, but hey, you don't have to move. Very familiar offense, new quarterback as well versus entirely new offense, moving your family and all that stuff. Or I guess the numbers just didn't work for him. But then the Ravens finally got Sammy Watkins from the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Ravens did get a free agent wide receiver, and I think the money was right for us. So I think it was a great deal all along to bring in Sammy Watkins. And I think it's 1 year, $5 million, or 1 year, $6 million. And it's the perfect deal, especially for like an Anthony Harris type of deal, 1 year, $5 million, 1 year, $6 million. It's that if he has a great season or even an good, above average, great season, fantastic deal. If he underperforms, okay, well, that was only 4, 5, 6 million. So it's not like we signed somebody for multi-year, dozens and dozens and dozens of millions of dollars, and then he underperforms. We're like, this is a bust. Why do we waste all this money on him? It's like, hey, great value if he does well. And then, hey, you know what? It was a very cheap deal if he doesn't underperform. And then the big news, and I think this is a little bit bigger than Joe, maybe you think, the Seattle Seahawks have locked up Tyler Lockett, signing him to a huge extension. I believe it was 4 year. Where is that? It's like 4 years, $69.2 million contract extension. So 4 years, $69 million. A very nice deal, Joe. Very nice deal. But that's a lot of money for a wide receiver, especially when you have DK Metcalf. And I think that means DK Metcalf is gone. He will not be re-signing an extension with the Seattle Seahawks. So whether they trade him this year, next year, or he walks in free agency, I think that means DK Metcalf is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. It's, the Seahawks are definitely, they have a lot of salary cap issues. So, this kind of helps in some ways, but then it also limits your ability to re-sign a guy like DK Metcalf. So, right now, the way it looks, I see where you're coming from. And, I think it's definitely a possibility, especially when you consider the injury concerns that he had coming out of college. They may know something that we don't. He may just not have a long NFL career ahead of him. And if that's the case, then, this is a great move by Seattle to get ahead of it. On the flip side, until today, we've still been hearing a lot of rumors about Russell Wilson potentially leaving Seattle in a couple of years. Today Carlos Dunlap came out and said he had been talking to Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson assured him he's here and he's here to stay. And that's why Carlos Dunlap resigned. So, it seems like he's here to stay, but if he does end up getting traded, then, and they have a rookie quarterback or a cheap quarterback or a young quarterback on a cheap deal, something along those lines, then, maybe they do have the ability to re-sign a DK Metcalf and surround that young cheap quarterback with a lot more talent than Russell Wilson has really had. So, we'll see what happens. It'll be really interesting how that plays out. Until today, I was a little bit more of mine that, there's a higher chance that Russ would get traded. But, with the Carlos Dunlap news, it makes me kind of think otherwise at this point. But you never know what can happen in the NFL. Things can change quick, especially when teams are losing.
Yeah, and that was the first thought that popped into my head too. Once I saw that number, that 4 for 69, 4 for 70, My first thought was DK is gone because no team pays 2 receivers 4-year, $70 million deals. You just don't see that in the NFL these days. Even a wide receiver, tight end combo. I don't know how the Chiefs did it, but somehow they have been able to flex the cap a little bit. But it also helps when you have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So I can see DK staying for sure, but this could also be a thing. And we'll talk about this with Sam Darnold and the Jets. Let's say the Seahawks go 7-9 next year, 7-10. Now that there's a 17-game NFL schedule, with DK having one more year on his contract, maybe the Seahawks kind of do that evaluation, being like, hey, we can get a somewhat value for him now because we know he's going to walk in free agency. Let's try to trade him or whatnot. Or even on the flip side, if he has a great year, being like, hey, maybe this could be our leverage to move up and officially start a rebuild because we are in so much cap space. So that's definitely an eye to look out for. So that's just my opinion. I think DK is gone. I think it's a great deal for Tyler Lockett. Don't get me wrong, great wide receiver. So we'll just see how that all unfolds in Seattle. And Joe, any other thoughts on like T.Y. Hilton, Ravens getting Sammy Watkins, any other free agent wide receivers or offensive players? I mean, the Buccaneers re-signed everybody. All 22 stars are returning as well. So any kind of final thoughts on some recent free agent news before we hop into some big trades involving the NFL draft?
Yeah, I mean, I like all those deals for the most part. I mean, the Sammy Watkins is, really, I think, a smart play by the Ravens to add a veteran receiver with still a couple years ahead of him and a lot of upside. This guy had, when he was at Clemson and, his first couple years in Buffalo, he was lighting it up. He looked like he was going to be the next best thing. And that really hasn't been the case the last couple of years, but he's been very overshadowed by Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and just, having these injuries. So, if he can stay healthy, I think he can be like, a really, really big part of that Baltimore Ravens offense and, just be that veteran voice in that locker room, in that position group for, guys like Marquise Goodwin, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, and Devin Duvernay. So, I think it's a really smart signing by the Ravens. T.Y. Hilton, I think, is a good signing for the Colts. Bring him back. That's a, easy call. Still don't really think that the Colts have that great of skill players. I'll say that, they've got a great offensive line. They've got a great running game. Outside of T.Y. Hilton, I mean, you've got Michael Pittman who, flashed, but we still don't really know. They've got a couple decent tight ends in Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox. They don't have a ton of weapons, though, so we'll see, because Carson Wentz had a great O-line in Philadelphia his entire career, a solid running game, and not great weapons. So, we'll see, everyone's talking about this being such a better situation for him. I think outside of the Frank Wright connection, it's not really that much different. I think it's a better run organization, better run team right now, and definitely a better roster, especially their defense. But it just kind of looking at it and at the offense, I just don't really see that much, it's not that much better than the Eagles offense on paper, so, that'll be an interesting situation to monitor there. I mean, those are my couple thoughts there for the most part, but a lot of good moves all around. I'm excited to see, all the different players on each team, but, the Bucs bringing back everybody is huge. And, I think they're just going to come out rolling week one, a lot more confidence. So, it'll be a lot of fun to watch, but I'm excited to get into the draft stuff, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we hop into the draft, just a reminder, everybody watching out there, hit that thumbs up button to like this video. And if you are new to the channel, hit subscribe so you know when all of our videos come out. Little quick tidbit there, Joe, but now it's time for the draft news, and we'll kind of break this down in a couple of parts. The first big move that happened was that the San Francisco 49ers traded with the Miami Dolphins to go from pick number 12 all the way up to pick number 3. So just before the Dolphins made another move, what were your thoughts on this deal? The 49ers jumping up basically 10 spots all the way to number 3. They said Jimmy G is our guy, but then Shanahan and Lynch came out a couple of days later and was like, well, obviously we're taking a quarterback. You don't move up from 12 to 3 to not take a quarterback. So what does this mean for not only the 49ers moving up and also saying Jimmy G is our guy, but we're drafting a quarterback. And then we'll talk about the Dolphins in a second, because they are not at pick 12. I can tell you that.
Yeah. No, I really like the move for the 49ers. I like it for both the 49ers and the Dolphins. But, the 49ers, they got to go get their guy and upgrade at quarterback. I mean, Jimmy G, he's okay, but he's not gonna take them to the next level. So, I don't think he's a guy that, you can win with him. Obviously, they got to the Super Bowl with him, but he's not going to be the one to win you those games. So they're going up to get their guy. Adam Schefter today and Ian Rappaport has reported a couple times now. All indications are that it is Mac Jones out of Alabama that they are targeting at number 3, which I think is shocking to a lot of people, considering, kind of going into this process, people expected him to be the 5th quarterback taken and Justin Fields maybe to be number 2. Now it's almost looking like Justin Fields could be the 5th quarterback taken. So, I mean, it's very, very interesting how it's shaking up the QB pecking order. It could be a smokescreen. It could be Justin Fields. It could be Trey Lance. I'd been hearing a lot, in the pre-draft process that Trey Lance was a guy who fit the 49ers offense and Kyle Shanahan's offense really, really well. But evidently, they're all reports indicate it's Mac Jones. So like I said, unless it's a huge smokescreen, Mac Jones is going to be the 3rd quarterback taken after Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. So, I mean, it's a bold move by the 49ers to, go and take a guy that, a lot of people did not even have as a 1st-round quarterback, just a couple months ago. So things can change quick in the NFL, and it's a bold move by the 49ers, but I like it if they think they're upgrading from Jimmy G.
Well, and the 49ers have been known to actually get some good picks and actually make some great picks in the first couple of rounds under John Lynch as GM. This isn't like a Pete Carroll Seattle Seahawks where they're taking these weird guys like Bruce Irvin and Rashad Penny at the time. Right. Everybody's like, why are you taking it? What? So the 49ers have actually made some solid picks in the first round. So we'll see with that. And the Dolphins are just stocking up draft picks. And they were a couple of games away from making the playoffs last year. They made a tremendous step. They still have a young quarterback in Tua, but they got the right coaching and the right GM in place, and they were just stocking up on draft picks. And then minutes later, Joe, the Dolphins traded back up from 12 to 6 with your Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles moved down from 6 to 12. So, Joe, what does this mean for the Dolphins, first off? And then how relieved are you as an Eagles fan that there's a little bit of pressure taken off of you? Because at 6, and assuming the Eagles are going wide receiver, that could change for sure. But a position of need, the wide receiver, at pick 6, you could have had all of them on the board. Now at 12, you might just pick up the scraps, or maybe you get a J.C. Horn out of South Carolina, one of the top defensive backs, which is also a need for the Eagles. So what does this mean for the Dolphins, basically going from 3 to 12 to 6? Well, they did go from 3 to 12 to 6. And then also your Eagles dropping back. I mean, I think it's only good news for the Dolphins. They can go ahead, maybe get Penei Sewell, see if we can get another tackle for Tua, or maybe they get him Devontae Smith, the Heisman winner, who Tua was throwing to for a couple of years at Alabama. So this is interesting to see what the Dolphins are going to do. So what do you think is happening with the Dolphins? And then likewise, talk about your Eagles moving down in the draft.
Yeah, with the Dolphins, I think that they don't want to take a quarterback right now. They want to give Tua a shot. So
they should do.
Absolutely. I mean, he deserves a full season as the starter, a full off season with the team. A non-COVID year. So I really like the move by the Dolphins because, once they decide we're not taking a quarterback, we want to take someone from another position, such as Sewell. I think it's either Sewell, Jamar Chase, or Kyle Pitts. And, tight
end would be us.
They would take one of those players at number 3. So why not trade down to number 6 and still get their guy? Because most likely it's going to be 4 QBs taken in the top 4 picks. So then they at least get their, one of those 3 guys will 100% be there at number 6. So I like the move by the Dolphins to, they have a plan in mind, they have a plan in place, and they're executing it. And I think it's a very smart move by them because they have the capital to make this move. They gave up. They still have plenty of capital left in the next couple of years. They gave up their own first-round pick to move up, and their first-round pick next year, and a fourth-round pick this year for the Eagles to go back 6 spots. So from the Eagles' perspective, I'm thrilled in the fact that this. I don't know. I can't recall if I mentioned this on the podcast kind of going into the offseason, but I know for, the longest time I've been saying I want us to trade down. And because this is not going to – I've said this is not going to be a good year for the Eagles. It is going to be bad. This team is old. This team is not talented, and this team is expensive. We have to add young talent in so many different positions, young, cheap talent. And, just adding one guy at number 6 versus now having potential for 3 first-round picks next year.
Yeah.
Now, because with the Colts, it's conditional. I believe it's most likely going to be a first-round pick. So that would be either 3 first-round picks or 2 1s and 2 2s, which I'm all about. So one way or the other, the biggest thing is it gives us options and flexibility in the future. Because now, we're obviously not adding unless someone slips, which is still very possible. I'll get to that in a sec. But we're not adding like a Jamar Chase at number 6 and just being like, okay, we're here, Jalen Hurts, we're helping you. We're moving back. We're stockpiling for next year in 2022 when the cap situation gets better. We can get rid of some of these contracts and see what we have in some of these young players. And Jalen Hurts is going to have a full year to be the guy and show us what he can do. And he has to be nothing less than convincing for the Eagles to build around him. If he looks average, if he looks good but not great, he has to look like, even though this is a new offense, there's not a ton of talent around him. He's in his second year. He only started 4 games. If the moment is not too big for him and he's not the problem and he's playing well, he will get his shot. But if it's below that, now the Eagles have 3 first-round picks to potentially move up and go get their guy at the top of the first round next year. So I think that's one of those 2 possibilities. Either Jalen Hurts does well and overcomes the odds, and he's the starter moving forward. That's awesome. Now we have 3 first-round picks to add talent around him. If not, then we trade down or we trade up and go get our guy, and Jalen Hurts is probably part of that package as well. So, we will definitely have options, and that's what I love. I also think going down to 12, considering the fact that most likely 5 quarterbacks are going to be off the board before you pick at 12, there's going to be someone there that falls that's good. Jamar, I'd be thrilled. I don't think this will happen, but Jamar Chase, don't think it'll happen, but I think there's a small possibility. Devontae Smith, I think, is a very real possibility because a lot of people are starting to discount his size. And then Jalen Waddle, I'd also be happy with there. Kyle Pitts, that would be – I don't think he falls out of the top 10. But, at number 12, I think you do got to take him. If not them, maybe one of the offensive linemen, Sewell or Slater. And then, potentially one of the corners, Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn, who I would love J.C. Horn at this point. I would be very, very happy with J.C. Horn. And, I would definitely get his jersey the second that happens. So, it would, I would be all about that. I love this move. I think that at 12, there's going to be a good player there. I do think it adds more pressure instead of takes pressure off Howie Roseman because, now, at 6, this is the flip side. You have the chance to get a surefire blue chip prospect like a Jamar Chase, a Sewell, or at least your choice of the receivers and Kyle Pitts and all that. You have your choice of a blue chip prospect. Now at 12, you're hoping that happens, but I could so easily see Howie Roseman and the Eagles take a defensive end like Kwity Paye out of Michigan or one of the Miami guys, and Howie Roseman just being like, we got the top pass rusher in the draft at 12, the guy we wanted to get at 6 all along. We were thrilled. Like, I'll be so pissed. I would hate that. So I'm hoping for one of the receivers, one of the corners. I'd be okay with an offensive lineman. But I like the move overall a lot for the Eagles.
Yeah, no, I've always been a fan as a Ravens fan of trading back in the first round. I mean, especially if we're always consistently picking at 25, 20, 24, 25, 26, and there's a couple of guys that were kind of like, yeah, not quite sure we want this player. Like, let's just move back to like pick one or two of the round two, get another pick in the third or fourth or whatever. And then we have a whole extra day, night to figure out who we're going to pick. So I think this is great for the Eagles as well as the Dolphins. And now the Eagles have a little bit more capital, and it's a little bit easier to go from 12 to 9 or 10 if there were like those two receivers available to just hop up in front of the New York Giants at 11.
Or the Cowboys.
Joe, to your credit or about the intentional tanking of the Eagles, the Giants are picking 11. That would have been the Eagles. They would not have been moving back from 6 to 12, potentially getting a third first round pick next year. And we were texting, obviously, best case scenario, you have pick 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, and 3 in the draft next year. But the likely scenario is the Dolphins still be about 8 and 8, 9 and 7. So you have pick 1 through 10, which is the Eagles having a rough season. Then somewhere in the middle of 11 to 20 from the Dolphins. And then Carson Wentz and the Colts do great. You get a first round pick and you're picking, 20 to 32 or 21 to 32. So you basically have the first third, second third, and third. And that's, then you can really get creative with moving around, getting a couple of picks like we've been seeing with the Dolphins the last couple of years with all of their draft capital. So great move for the Eagles. And I was reading today about the Falcons because they're sitting there at 4 and the GM was like, okay, awesome. He's like, either way, we're going to get great value. We're going to get the best non-quarterback in the draft or the best non-quarterback that fits our needs and what we're looking for, or we can trade back and get some more picks. So he was like, either way, this is a win-win for us being at 4, and they are open to trading it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see another team trying to pop in at 4. So this is going to be fun, Joe. I cannot wait for the draft. After this great weekend that we're about to have, we can really hop into the draft and more talking with that. And then something that just happened last night, the Jets traded Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers for a couple of draft picks. I believe it was a second round, a fourth round, and a sixth round. I believe. Let me just see if I can actually
that's
find
right.
it. Yeah, second round pick next year, fourth round pick next year, and a 20 or a 6th round pick this year. And I think a lot of people were speculating they were going to take a quarterback. It looks like it's going to be Zach Wilson, as my friend who's a Jets fan calls him, Mormon Mahomes. So there was a lot of speculation they would take him. Now it's pretty much confirmed that they're going to take him at number 2, unless for some reason Trevor Lawrence doesn't go number 1. But I think Urban Meyer was like, we're taking Trevor. So, and I think this is exactly kind of what I was saying about DK Metcalf, was like the Jets were like, hey, we can get a couple of picks for Sam Darnold right now. He's not going to be our starting quarterback for the entire season or even one game. Let's trade him now. Let's get some sort of value for him. And the Panthers have potentially a starting quarterback. I would imagine that Sam Darnold would be in there competing. No, by no means will he be quarterback number 1. But a solid young quarterback for the Panthers. And clearly it's not Deshaun Watson, which was on a lot of people's wish list, but the Panthers didn't give up any first round picks. So that is good. So Joe, what were your thoughts on the Jets trading Sam Darnold? Obviously now it's a rookie quarterback, rookie head coach up there in New York. But I think the big thing is the Panthers getting Sam Darnold, giving up a couple of draft picks. And we'll definitely revisit the NFC South that we've already talked about. But Joe, talk about this trade that just happened.
Yeah, I like this trade for both sides. I'll start with the Jets. I mean, if they assessed Zach Wilson as, the guy that they want moving forward. And, that's really all there is to it. I mean, you can talk about having, 2 good starting caliber quarterbacks on your roster, but all that does is create tension, create drama. You need to have that one guy who's the undisputed starter and not put both of them in that uncomfortable position. So I think it's a smart move by the Jets to, move Sam Darnold and get something back for him. On the flip side with the Panthers, I think it's a really good move on their end because they've obviously been trying to upgrade at quarterback in some capacity.
Yeah.
We know they were in on Matt Stafford and just couldn't match the Rams price. We know that they've been monitoring this Deshaun Watson situation for quite some time. And, they were willing to trade a lot of capital for him. But now, obviously, that's something that just can't happen with his situation going on. But then I think that they obviously were gauging the trade up possibility to go up into the top 5. And I think that, what's really interesting about what's been happening this year is that all these teams are trading up now instead of on draft day. I think that the 49ers really, kind of jumped the gun on everybody because everybody was waiting or essentially, kind of either waiting for someone to do that or they were going to wait till draft day and wait for the best offer then. But then the 49ers kind of changed everything, making that move a month out. And now we essentially know, like you said, I mean, today with the Darnold trade, it confirms it. We're going Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and I think Mac Jones. So then that puts so much more pressure on these other teams like the Panthers, like the Broncos, like the Patriots, maybe the Bears, any of these teams that would want to trade up now to number 4, because now there's only 2 options really left to take at 4 and 5. And both the Falcons and the Bengals now have a lot of asking power with those picks. Because we know just today we're hearing the Falcons.
Well, the Bengals probably need to stay at 5.
They probably should take Sewell or Chase, but at the same time, I mean, if a team comes calling, or if it's the Patriots moving up 10 spots to go right there, you get a lot of capital there, and still have some talent there in the middle of the first round, and then kind of a similar position to the Eagles, but they are also. Joe Burrow's on that rookie contract right now, and they need to add talent around him right now. So we'll see what happens there. But, I think it's interesting because the Panthers obviously assessed that number 4 and number 5 spot in terms of trading up and, just weren't able to make that work. I'm sure the Falcons just weren't interested in letting the Panthers trade up and draft their franchise quarterback. So, they had to make a call. And with Darnold, I think that he is QB1. Teddy, I believe, is being shopped as a potential trade. But he does have a pretty hefty cap hit this year, so we'll kind of have to see how that goes. But I think it is Darnold. I think they already exercised his 5th-year option, and they're going to have 2 years to assess if he's going to be their guy. Yeah. And I think this is a much better situation than he was in with the Jets. I mean, Matt Rule is a good coach. This guy has had Adam Gase for his whole career. And no run game, no O-line, no receivers, no defense. Like, he's been in the worst possible situation from day one and never really been given a fair chance to succeed. So now he's in Carolina. He's reunited with Robbie Anderson, one of the best receiving threats he's played with. He's now got DJ Moore as well. He's got Christian McCaffrey. He's got and it's a young team, and Darnold is young. He's 23. He's got a lot of potential, and he's got Joe Brady as his offensive coordinator. And I think that's the big storyline. If Sam Darnold has a really good year, or just an above average year, especially compared to where he's played at the last couple years, Joe Brady is going to be a head coach next year. I mean, if you can change Sam Darnold from being the 33rd out of 33 quarterback rankings this year to 15, he'll be a head coach next year. So
and the thing with the Panthers too is that it's probably safe to assume 4 and 5 are going to be some sort of offensive position, whether that's somebody trading up to get a quarterback, maybe the Bengals getting Joe Burrow another weapon, the Falcons maybe getting Sewell. They're probably going to trade, is my guess. At 6, you're looking at the Dolphins. That could be Sewell getting Tua some protection, or getting another one of the wide receivers. So the Panthers are sitting there at 8. They might have their pick of any defensive player that they want in the draft. And one of my Panthers friends was saying he's really interested in Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State. So that's another kind of move by the Panthers saying, hey, we might have the first pick of defensive players in this draft, or maybe number 2, depending on how 5, 6, and 7 go. So they're sitting there pretty too to bolster up that defense. Because as you mentioned, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, and then Joe Brady as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they went with somebody like a Kyle Pitts or one of these wide receivers. But I think defense, and we saw that last year in the draft, going all defense. If they can get that stud linebacker, outside linebacker, edge rusher as well, the Panthers are looking pretty good. And as we mentioned in the NFC outlook, they're seeing, okay, Tampa Bay is probably going to go 13-4, whatever 17 games is. They're probably going to win 13, 14 games. Falcons aren't good, and neither are the Saints now because Drew Brees is retired. So the Panthers, as we mentioned, 8, 9, 10 wins, that's a wild card. And maybe if they beat the Buccaneers once or twice, get those tiebreakers like the Saints did this year, who's to say that the Panthers couldn't make the playoffs or even win the division, depending on how Tampa does. So there's a nice little window for Carolina right now to be competitive and maybe make Carolina a nice destination for some more trades, draft picks, and free agents.
Yeah, no, that was the other thing I really liked about the trade for the Panthers. I mean, they did not give up that much. I mean, a future second, a future fourth, and a 6th round pick this year. You know, the second hurts, but you know, it's not too much for Sam Darnold. You held on to that number 8 pick and you nailed it. I mean, now they can probably get their pick of the defensive players that they want. I think Micah Parsons would replace Luke Kuechly for them, and a defense that, you know, really misses that middle linebacker presence.
It just needs that leadership there too in
exactly.
the linebacker core.
Yeah. So the only thing with Micah Parsons is, you know, these potential character concerns with I guess whatever went on at Penn State. So I mean, you know, that's what you got to assess. If that's who's going to be the leader of your defense, you better make sure that, you know, there's no concerns off the field.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So they have their pick, and as you said, the second round does hurt, but if they get 8, 9, 10 wins, that's a mid to late second round pick where instead of pick 35 or 40, you're looking at pick 55, 60, and you're kind of like the back half of the second round, obviously not as flashy as having pick number 35, one of the top 3 picks in round number 2. So great trades all around for every team. I think there was none of these trades where I was kind of like, you know, probably gave up a little too much or that was a little bit of a bad deal. But then again, we don't know. We don't know who they're drafting or how these players are going to turn out. But that's all it on my end, Joe. I mean, I'm just super excited for this weekend. But any final words on any signings, draft trades, anything like that in the last couple of weeks since we last talked that you want to touch base on?
Yeah, I'll give one update. Big news that, you know, we haven't touched on. Jalen Hurts changing his number from number 2 to number 1. And I love it. It is big winner energy right there. This man
half
is
the number, half the player.
Well, you know, Carson Wentz tried to copy him when he went to Indianapolis. Now Carson Wentz is number 2. I love that storyline. Like Jalen Hurts was number 2 when he was the number 2 quarterback. Carson Wentz leaves, says, I'm going to copy Jalen Hurts because I can't do anything right on my own. So I'm going to be number 2. And then Jalen Hurts says, you know what? Nah, I'm the starting QB. I'm the number 1 guy. I'm switching to number 1. I love it. So pumped about that. Kind of on the same train of thought. The NFL is considering changing the jersey number restrictions to be a lot more similar to college and let, you know, receivers, running backs, DBs wear single digit numbers. What are your thoughts on that, Sam? I'm not sure if I love it simply because I think I guess maybe because I'm so used to being different between the NFL and college, I like that it's different so that the NFL kind of has that as their thing and college has that as their thing at this point. But at the same time, it's like it'd be cool.
It would definitely be an adjustment period. And I mean, I think it would be very hypocritical. I mean, we love Jadeveon Clowney. We both went to South Carolina. He was number 7. Defenseman was number 7. And I think reading a couple of somebody tweeted out about some potential Ravens numbers, like Marquise Brown was number 5. I think Sammy Watkins was also double digits at Clemson. J.K. Dobbins was number 2 at Ohio State. So I think it could be interesting. And I think it would be neat, especially if that does change, to be rocking like a number 2 or number 3 J.K. Dobbins jersey or whatever. But on the flip side, let's just go completely crazy. Give me a kicker who's number 78, okay? Like, if we're going to
99.
Yeah, if we're gonna allow skill positions to move up into single digits, you should open it up for kickers. Like, give me, Pat McAfee definitely would have been number 69. Like, like,
Yes.
give me like some like tiny 5'5" kicker who's like coming in from Europe, and he's just like, you know what? I want number 63. Like, so I can see both sides of the argument, like yourself. I think it would be an adjustment period for some of the older, more experienced NFL watchers, as I will say.
But if they're gonna do that, but if they're gonna do it, now is the time to do it while there's still that adjustment
Right.
period with the additional game this year, which is still weird to me. So I think that if they're gonna do it, they should do it now and kind of do a couple things at once rather than change this one thing this year and then change that one thing next year, another thing. Like, stop changing it so much. Like, find a formula that just works and stick with it and leave it alone for a little bit. Like, my God.
Yeah. Yeah,
If
absolutely.
it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And we'll see, and we will definitely talk about the 17th game a little bit more after in the next week or two, as the schedule should be out, because the schedule definitely comes out before the draft, so we can talk about the schedule being released and all that kind of stuff. And then for the draft, we got a couple of ideas. I have a couple of ideas, Joe, that I haven't told you yet, but we're going to be super excited to be talking about the NFL after this awesome weekend, and we're going to talk all throughout the weekend. Spoiler alert, it's Joe's bachelor party, and we are going to Denver. We are going to the Mile High City. So we'll be talking football the entire weekend, and we will definitely return to the show hopefully next week if we have recovered in time. If not, we will definitely be back when the schedule is out, as well as for the NFL draft. But that's all I got to say. Joe, anything on your end?
That's all I got too, Timmy B. Good stuff today, baby. I'm so excited for this weekend. I'm so excited for the draft. Like, man, this is so many things to look forward to. And then I get married. Like, I'm so excited for that too. That's cool too, right?
That is awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Flea Flicker. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and do all that stuff. And we will definitely see you in the next episode. So have a great day, everybody. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.